Hello, all, and welcome to this evening's whiskey review, which I am going to dub the Happy St. Patrick's Day whiskey review. It's not very often that, my reviewing times, I only review on Thursdays and Fridays, with my schedule being what it is, and it happens to fall on St. Patrick's Day today, and I wasn't even planning on reviewing anything sort of Irish themed, but this week I'm going to be reviewing two Irish themed things, products from Ireland that I have not reviewed. And I only kind of determined this yesterday. And what happened yesterday? Well, I was at Times Supermarket over by where I live. Now, Times Supermarket is not really the kind of place that you would go to go and find liquors. They don't have like a very good selection for much of anything other than Japanese. Some sakes and shochus. But for some reason, they had an entire shelf full of these. And this is the triple cask version. There is also a single malt, a single grain, and a single pot version of it. And this triple cask version is a blend of those previous three. It's also the lowest ABV at 40% ABV, aka 80 proof, and cheapest at about $24. The others were more like $30. And I kind of went with this one because it was the cheapest, really. The other one sounded more interesting, but, you know, it's been years since I reviewed an Irish whiskey, and I have to say that this left me quite chuffed. Now, the reason I haven't reviewed much Irish whiskeys is because they're there's a lot fewer of them compared to other styles of whiskey. They've been dominated by large distilleries for quite some time. Jameson's, Bushmills, Powers, and those being the big three. And only now that you're starting to see a lot of smaller ones kind of come up. Well, this isn't really a craft whiskey, but real craft whiskeys are actually pretty rare, vanishingly rare, no matter what the style there is. It's made by Royal Oak Distillery in Ireland, but under the umbrella of, I forget what big conglomerate, but it's the one that also makes Disaronno, that Italian liquor that's pretty well globally known. Wait, I can check the back here and see here. Well, it doesn't have a distributor. But Royal Oak, it's made in Ireland. It's true Irish whiskey. Fairly recent. It's not one that's been around for a very long time. This particular one, Busker, but the distillery has been around for a while, from what I can read. I'm not sure if it's a revival of an old defunct distillery or has just been a really small one for ages and ages. Those who know Irish whiskey can tell. Now, I haven't reviewed much of them because I much prefer more the more wider range of taste notes, flavor notes, intense flavors that are provided by bourbon, rye, and Scotch whiskeys, Japanese whiskeys as well. Irish whiskeys kind of have, being triple distilled and often columnar, partially columnar distilled, have a much more even and smooth quality that is less interesting to one like myself. So, of the Irish whiskeys I've reviewed, the ones I've reviewed have mostly been the exceptions to that sort of style rule. This is within that style rule, other than the fact that it's been within three different kinds of three different casks. The cask being sherry, marsala, and bourbon. So there's some interest there. There's some interesting things there. And yeah, you know, um, I don't think I'm going to be able to review all four members of this line, at least not in any reasonable time frame, because, like I said, I'm poor. And this channel's not popular enough so I can start a Patreon saying, hey, go and throw me $200 a month so, I can review things. Maybe I should. I don't know. So yeah, without much further ado, let's just get straight to this, shall we? Be pouring it into a Glencairn glass. This is not every day I get to review an Irish whiskey on St. Patrick's Day. Here we go. It is really weird, to just find this at a grocery store that is not known for carrying much of a liquor selection, or a beer selection for that matter. They have some of the worst beer selection I have seen. Though oddly enough, they always seem to have like one or two you can't find anywhere else. Go figure. So I guess same with the liquor. So, a nice honeyed yellow, fairly thick legging. Mmm, lovely. Almost apple juice or pear-like notes. Apples, pears, honey, light floral notes. And underneath that, a kind of strong, grainy backbone. Like oatmeal cookies. Within that backbone is also, of course, the oak barrel, vanilla, and just a slight hint of candied fruit notes, probably from the Marsala and sherry cask aging. All in all, the nose is just absolutely wonderful. Almost perfume-like, if not in intensity, but in sort of complexity. Onto the palate now, shall we? There is a sort of bourbon-like spiciness in the finish. Not as strong as bourbon, but definitely a light pepperiness, followed by oak notes. Smooth and creamy up front. The heat only really kind of shows itself in the finish. Very smooth, very creamy up front. With almost like a sweetness that emerges in the mids and continues on into the finish. With a nuttiness and almost graininess in the mids there. Kind of like an almond cookie kind of like note. There isn't much juiciness on the palate, except in the top note that you sense through your nose. It's fairly intense there. Like I said, this goes down really easy. Yeah, a lot of vanilla and like wood oak notes in that long, long finish after the spice has kind of subsided. That subtle spiciness has subsided. Almost like fudgy or milk chocolate like notes in the mids as well. Very brief. The mids definitely have a lot of complexity there, but it's fairly brief before it kind of goes into, just that smooth creaminess, but not too much taste dimension in the front. And then kind of pepperiness followed by oak and vanilla in the long finish. You're kind of left with that really brief but surprisingly complex mid palate there. So yeah, Buskers. You can tell that this is an Irish whiskey. One, it is very smooth. But that said, even with that smoothness, it's not without character like a lot of the larger, more the more well-known Irish whiskey brands are. There is quite a bit of character packed in there. I would say more in the nosing than in the palate, though that mid palate right there definitely has a lot of things going on. And if you're not the kind of person who, is really into like really subtle taste notes and mining it, well, it goes down easy. It goes down like an Irish whiskey should. So yeah, I'm pretty well chuffed by this one. It was kind of a surprise. And while I'd love to go and see other iterations of this particular whiskey, at $30 a bottle, that's kind of steep for me. It is interesting how juicy it is on the nose, kind of smelling. The immediate apple and pear, juicy apple, juicy pear like notes that are completely not there on the palate. Almost no fruit notes at all on the palate. A lot more mid toned kind of flavors, I would say. Like I said, this is really interesting. It's kind of drink I can go and mull over and chew over with time, and that's not something I really expect with something I've paid $24 for the bottle of. Is it fudge? Is it like milk chocolate or white chocolate? I don't know. It's a really interesting but very brief yet strong kind of note that appears right in the mids there. And I can't quite put my finger on exactly, but it's interesting. So, Busker's Triple Cask Triple Smooth, definitely worth a shot if you go and find it. And considering that the other three iterations are basically what comprises this blended whiskey, I think that they'd be interesting enough to go and visit on their own and maybe even do like a 4 glass vertical of. Like I said, I don't really have the resources to do that myself right now, but it is interesting to contemplate. Well, folks, I have some corned beef and cabbage in the refrigerator that a coworker has so kindly made for me. And yeah, I'm going to go and finish this up, crack open a beer, heat that up, and have myself some nice, wonderful dinner. And you all have yourself a happy St. Patrick's Day. Cheers. Or should I say, slante. May the luck of the Irish be with you. Oh god, that was a horrible thing. Uh, be glad I don't edit these. Otherwise, I would edit that out. Slante.